All right, so let's give a round of applause to the Vice President. And we also have the Minister of Agriculture. You know, Region 5 is massively agricultural. Honorable Minister Zulfikar Mustafa. And we have, about to be seated, the Honorable Minister of Public Service that I introduced to you earlier, the Honorable Sonia Parat. And of course, in our region, I only recently found out that some of his family is also my family in West Berbice. That is true, VP, Kwame McCoy, the minister within the Office of the Prime Minister responsible for public affairs. So he's one of us, so give him a round of applause. So, as I was saying to you, this program is very important to the government, and it is being executed by the Ministry of Local Government, but pursued especially is an initiative of His Excellency our Vice President, and who has been behind this for the past 2 weeks across the country. And today we're in Region 5, and more particularly this midday we are in West Berbice, covering the entire West Berbice. So let us welcome the Honorable Vice President to speak to you.
Thank you very much, colleagues, friends. First of all, I'm so pleased to see so many of you here. And today, at the end of this activity, all of you will be in the employ of the government of Guyana. So as Nigel pointed out, maybe a month and a half ago, we have been traversing several regions in our country, launching this initiative. The initiative is very important for the future and for many of you, and I will explain why shortly. But we went to the Essequibo Coast, we went to Region 10, namely Linden. We were in Region 6 last week, and now we're here in Region 5. And by the end of today, some maybe 7,000 Guyanese would have been part of this program. So that's a large number of people. When you calculate the part-time employment at $40,000 per person for 10 days work per month, this runs into billions of dollars because of so many people across the country. But we thought it necessary, given the circumstances of the country, that I want to talk to you about at this point in time. So you know, we just, about 2 months ago, emerged from the pandemic, COVID. Prior to that, it would have been illegal to have a gathering of this nature. No, that's okay. Just some water, please. So it would have been illegal to have a gathering of this nature because we had to have some strict protocols. We had to have some strict protocols to ensure that we kept our people safe from COVID. And since the government took office in August 2020, that was the immediate task before us, because we came into office. It was not anticipated that we'd have a one-in-a-lifetime pandemic. Other generations have lived and died and they never faced a global pandemic, but we have had to deal with that. And I must say that because this was the primary task of the government as soon as we got into office, today Guyana has emerged better than most countries. We have fared better because we had a dual approach, a very nuanced approach to addressing the pandemic. And what was this nuanced approach? First of all, building a national capability to ensure that we kept people safe. So the country was locked down when we got into office. We had just emerged from a very contentious election cycle. Many of you here in Region 5 are very familiar with that. We had to fight to preserve democracy, and that took a toll on the national psyche because we had to succeed. If you look around the world, countries that have fallen by the wayside in terms of democracy have lost significantly in national welfare and national well-being. Right here in Guyana, we can trace, if you go back to our economic and political history, starting from independence, you would see in the periods when we had no democracy in this country, our economy declined. We lost a lot of momentum. A lot of people fled the country. Earlier today and at other places, I sought to correlate how the lack of democracy affects the economy. Because when you have an unaccountable government, the policies that are pursued tend not to be the policies that are popular. So we had 3 decades of unsustainable borrowing that led to Guyana being technically bankrupt in the early 90s, with the debt being 9 times the size of the economy and using 153% of revenue to service that debt. If you want to get a feel for the economy of the past, just read Carl Greenidge, who was the Minister of Finance at that time under the PNC government. He issued an affidavit in the green mining construction arbitration. And if many of you have a chance to read that, it tells you the story of Guyana in terms of the economy. So for almost the 3 subsequent decades after the 90s, that burden of the debt took up a lot of momentum. It sapped a lot of energy. It diverted a lot of spending that could have focused on development and job creation back to repaying debts. I remember as Minister of Finance in the early days in the 90s, we didn't have money to pay wages and salaries in the public sector, because if you have 153% of revenue going to service debt, then you couldn't do anything much. And we worked our way out of this. Today we have one of the lowest debt figures in the world. Our debt now to GDP is 16% from a 900%, and we're using 6% of revenue to service external debts, down from 153%. So it's like taking a bankrupt country and making it viable. So that only happened because we did not have democracy in that period. So the fight in 2020 was an existential one. It was not a PPP fight. It was a fight for the country. Because had we not succeeded, then we could have returned to the past. And so we emerged, as I said before, on August, and the first decision of the cabinet, the first cabinet meeting was, should we keep the country locked down? Or should we open up? Because it had been locked down for about 4 or 5 months, with an order passed by the last government that said that if you had the pandemic, they can take you, quarantine you, and then even your property could be burnt. You remember that. You can go, it's still online, you can check it in the official gazette. And so we said no. We had lost too many jobs before the elections, and then when the pandemic struck, we lost about 35,000, 40,000 jobs too, because many people could not go to work. So it became unsustainable. So we decided we're going to have a dual strategy. One that built up the capability to address the pandemic. We're doing 40 tests at that time per day. Today we have the capacity to do 5,000 tests per day. We took the COVID hospital, put in the beds. There was no bed, not a single bed in it. No oxygen, no ICU, nothing. And we did all of that. And then we scoured the world for vaccines, because you recall the developed world kept everything for themselves. They were not selling to Africa, nor the Caribbean or Asia. We were hunting for vaccines. They had all the vaccines for themselves. They were hoarding it. And we managed to get it, and about 80% of our adult population today is vaccinated. So the result of all of this is that our death rate in Guyana has been lower than many of the countries that locked down totally. We kept our airport open throughout the pandemic. Our death rate in Guyana is less than half on a per capita basis of the United States of America. So we've managed to come out of this pandemic, thank God, in a fairly decent way. But we've kept our country going too, and we managed to get a lot of people back to work because we allowed the businesses to reopen, and we managed that affair. So it has been a very tough 18 months, 19 months in office since we took office, because we had to deal with that. Until now, we're dealing with the consequences of COVID, because we've come out of it, but what has happened globally is that in China, the United States, and many parts of the world, the factories were shut down. And so we import a lot of building material, food, etc., and they stop producing. So even now you see an increase in cost of living. For example, Malaysia and Indonesia, they used to export most of the cooking oil that the world uses. They restricted the export of cooking oil. So now you've seen the prices more than double across the world, including here in Guyana. India has done the same. Ukraine and Russia produced about 1/3 of the wheat. Now they have a war there, you can't get it. India has banned the export of wheat. We are now trying to explore if we can grow our own wheat here in Guyana, because the price of that went up too. So we've seen a lot of increase in prices because of the global pandemic. The factories were closed, not here in Guyana, but in the countries from where we import. And then with the war in Ukraine, oil prices have just skyrocketed from $28 a barrel in 2015. Today, it is almost $120 a barrel. So that has put, in spite of the fact that we removed the 50% tax, we've still seen an increase. So we're still facing the aftermath, the consequences of COVID in terms of its impact on people's lives through higher cost of living. But we're working through that too. So it has not been an easy 18 months being in office since we took office. But we made it clear that COVID or no COVID, we remain committed to the promises we made to people in the pre-election period. And so in the 18 months addressing COVID, we've also been addressing other things. So we promised, for example, in our manifesto when we contested elections, that we wanted to restore the children's grant, the $10,000 that was there, that APNU said they couldn't afford, that's for every child. They could not afford it, and then we said we will restore it and we will increase it within the 5 years to $50,000 per child. So in the first year we restored it. In this year's budget, it's $25,000 that's going to be distributed shortly. And then before the end of the 5 years, it will be $50,000 for every child. This is something we promised, and we're busy doing it. But we did not only do it for children going to public schools. We have 170,000 kids in public schools. There are 30,000 in private schools, so we now give them the grant too. So all 200,000 of the children in Guyana will get this, the 50,000 per child every single year from the government. Now, APNU said they could not afford it. And at the last meeting in Maikoni, when we launched a similar thing there, I was saying to people, you have to, particularly so many young people, we have to learn in this country to navigate so much information that is available to us. Information from the newspapers, on the internet, on radio, on television. And half of the time, a lot of this information is either blatantly erroneous or misleading. So you have to learn, as young people particularly, to judge for yourselves. So if a party says we can't afford it, you have to go and dig a bit deeper. And how do you do this? You take the estimates that is tabled in the parliament every year, and you look at the cost. So my point that I've been making in opposition, when I was opposition leader and now we're in government, that it was not that they could not afford it, but they chose another priority. Because if you look at the budget in 2014 and the budget in 2020, the estimates in Parliament, you will see that one item in government, just one item, you can track many others, that food in government, dietary, grew by over $1.6 billion. So they were spending over $1.6 billion more than 2014 on dietary, food in government. Guess how much the 1.6 it cost us to give the kids the $10,000? It was $1.67 billion. Because we had at that time 167,000 school kids. So if you multiply it by 10,000 each, it gives you 1.67 billion. So they chose to spend it more on food in government than to give it to the children. That was the priority. And so we made it clear that had to shift. So we've been cutting back on those things in the budget because we want to steer it in a different direction. So as I told you, we've been busy in the budget fulfilling the promises, although we're faced with COVID. The next thing we promised is the pensioners. We said we want a double old age pension in the 5 years. So in the first 2 years, it has been increased by 40%, and within the 5 years, the pensioners are going to get twice as much as they were getting. That's what we promised, and we're busy in fulfilling this. We said in the 5 years, we want to make the University of Guyana education free. We couldn't do it in the first year. We said within the 5 years, from 2020 to 2025. And we're still planning to make University of Guyana free in the outer years. Secondly, in the education sector, we said we wanted to do 20,000 online scholarships. This was before the election. We promised people. The first year, we did 6,000. This year, it's about 4,000 to 5,000. And so we're on track to complete the 20,000 long before 2025. And we've made it clear now, when I've gone to Linden and in Essequibo and just now to the other group that I spoke with, that if we get 50,000 people, in fact, all of you here who want to study, then the government will pay for the scholarship to everyone for the scholarship. So we've been busy doing that. We've been busy trying to fix the economy, because when APNU came into office saying that, first of all, that they're double old age pension in a month, it never happened. But that people were paying too much taxes and that they would reduce taxes. That was 2015. Then suddenly a VAT was placed on water. The VAT was placed on electricity. VAT was placed on hinterland travel. VAT was placed on food, on fertilizer, on pesticides, so on machinery and equipment. So what the result was that we saw the business community shrinking, because if you have to buy a bulldozer, you have to pay like $5 million more in taxes. So why would people be investing if they had to pay taxes on their factories and everything else? In the forestry sector, the production fell by 50%. From 2014 to 2020, we lost jobs. In mining, the same thing happened. The miners not only faced taxes on the machinery and equipment, but they had a 2% final tax that was increased to 28%. When we fought, they brought it down back to a sliding scale, which is 3.5% maximum at a particular price for gold. Just last week it was, when I met with the miners, we reversed that back to 2.5%, a final tax. So that we remove all of these, VAT on water and electricity and everything else. But because of the COVID and the higher import costs, although we remove the VAT, the 50% tax on fuel, the fuel prices still went up. Although we remove all the taxes on fertilizer, because fertilizer is made from crude oil and gas. And so if the prices go up, everything that goes up. So we remove all of those. Because of this, we've seen a spurt back in production. And now more and more, the mining has started expanding again. Forestry has been expanding. More people are investing. We've seen a surge in job creation, particularly in regions 4 and 3. Now in region 4, we have major labor problems. People can't find, if you speak with the contractors or the businessmen, they can't find workers. So if you find 500 or 1,000 people here who are willing to travel, I can get them a job immediately in region 4. But we're running out of labor in that region. But the other regions have many people who are still unemployed, because we can't get as many investments into the other region now. And I'll talk to you about how we'll fix that in the future. But in the short term, most of the things are happening in these two regions. The gas to energy project, shore base on the West Bank, 7 new major hotels being built that would need, say, 3,000 persons to work in the hotels. We are at Port Morant, we're taking over the Gaisuko training school and expanding that training school so that we can train people for the entire oil and gas sector. But we're also going to expand the training there for the hospitality industry. That means for the 3,000 jobs that the hotels, the new hotels will need. And these are hotels that are already starting now, because there'll be another 5 or so like the Marriott that we have. So major developments are taking place, but it's concentrated around 4 and region 3. In 2, region 10, Linden, Kwakwani, Burby, 6 and 5, we have not seen the same sort of investments as yet. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. So because our policies have changed since we got into office, we've seen an upsurge in investment, more jobs, etc. in many parts of the country, to the extent that we have labor problems. So these are just some of the things we've been fixing, like here in region 5. when the last government increased at MMA the water and land charges from $3,500 per acre per annum to $15,000. Now imagine you're doing agriculture, you're in a marginal activity, and you now have to pay like five times more in water and land charges than you were paying before. It would make it unprofitable. We took it back to the old level as soon as we got back in office. So we've been busy reversing a lot of the policies that are harmful. The joint services, you recall, they used to get a 1 month free tax-free bonus. The police or policemen, soldiers, firemen, and prison officers. That was taken away from them. And we restored that, which was another promise we made. So now they get back their 1 month tax-free bonus. These are all things in the last couple of years. Although the pandemic was raging, we were busy doing. On the other hand, we were planning also the future economic strategy. Now we came into government with a plan, because if you look at what the PPP had done in the past, taking Guyana from a bankrupt economy to one of the most viable economies and in fact vibrant economies in the Western Hemisphere before we found oil. And that required a clear vision, clear policies, and a commitment to the purpose of achieving that goal. It required a lot of fiscal discipline to get there. And so many people don't realize the legacy of the past, how it harmed us. Because when the debt was so high, it meant lost opportunities for development to our people. This generation and the generation just before you had to pay for those bad policies of the past. So we were committed not to burden a future generation with this overhang from the past. We moved our country forward. Many of you are young, and often you don't have a perspective of that history. When in the last years of my presidency, just before I left, a group of young people came to see me. They were going to a beauty pageant. There were about 13 young women. And I asked them a little bit about the history. So we were chatting. And I said, do you know that there was a time in Guyana when if you ate bread made from wheat, the police could lock you up? And they said, we didn't hear about that. One of the girls said, my grandmother told me that. But there was a time, not so long back in our history, that if you had a can of sardines, the police can come and lock you up. People used to eat it and bury the can. If you had bread made from wheat, they hunt you down, drag you off to the station. They could come and check people. Policemen, I saw images taking people's pot to the police station if they're cooking peas or something like that. The people don't know that. That used to happen in our country. And sometimes we lose perspective of how far we have come and the freedoms that we have today. So I'm hoping that people will learn a bit about the history. We don't want to go back there to that past. And a lot of the people who were very active at that time that those policies were in place, today some of them are the biggest naysayers. If you look at the newspapers, they have a big beef with this country. They have a big problem with the country. They're gripers. Fossils and gripers. They don't want our country to move forward. And so you see them every day in the newspapers, always negative about everything under the sun. For you to succeed, you have to have a positive outlook about the future. You have to say, I'm going to do well in this country. I'm going to seize every opportunity that I have. Every single opportunity. The moment you get caught up in this mindset, I'm a victim, etc., then you're doomed to fail. And that is what a lot of people would like people to go down that route. We had a positive mindset. We took over economy. When I got back to this country, we had 2 weeks blackout at a time, no power in the system. 2 weeks at a time. To drive around Georgetown, took from the Ministry of Finance to the Central Bank, which I can do in 30 seconds now. Used to take 10 minutes because you had to navigate potholes in the city. Deep holes, like in front of Palm Court, had a hole that if I go in now, if Kwame goes in, they can't see Kwame. So that is how it was. And we've come a long way without oil and gas. Without oil and gas. So I hope that you have this positive outlook on life. And that is why I say to people, use this as a stepping stone to study. The 10 days work you give, you put in here, you get some money, study, upgrade yourselves, find a better job. This is not a temporary program. I went to Linden first before I came back and launched the program. So when I left Linden, a number of people from the opposition, they were saying, oh, it will never happen. It was just a promise that they made. So when we went back now to actually hire 1,000 people there, more than all here, they then shifted. They said, oh, we don't want part-time jobs. We want full-time jobs. Now, this comes from a party that had 5 years in government and didn't create a single job in Linden, which is their stronghold. Not a single job there. Because the one facility that we had built, a call center when I was president, and 88 persons were working there, 3 months after they got into office, that was shut down. 88 persons lost jobs. So now you're out of government, you want full-time jobs, you didn't even do part-time jobs there. You didn't do any job for that matter. So I ignore that totally. Secondly, these are not part-time jobs. They misrepresent. These are not temporary jobs. These are part-time jobs. They said these are temporary jobs. These are part-time work. So it's not temporary. It's not like you're there today and tomorrow you'll be taken off for 6 months. You're here for the long run. So it is not a temporary job. They keep saying, oh, it's temporary. They're temporary jobs. So it is part-time work. You have 20 days at your disposal, but the 10 days you work for a salary. That's what you're getting. Then the leader of the opposition and Mahi Paul were on a program, and they said, what are the qualifications of these people? Why is the government hiring these people? You should watch the program. And in Berbice, I addressed that issue. I said the only qualification that we in the PPP require is that they're Guyanese. That's all. That they're Guyanese and they should get a job. Not to go and check who got a degree and who doesn't have a degree and all of that. We want our people to be working wherever. So you should check. So I can't be bothered too much with what they think, because if you bother with that, nothing happens. Now they're in the big thing about giving every Guyanese $5,000 from the oil money. Well, they couldn't give 10,000, afford the 10,000 Guyana dollars, but we want to give 5,000 US dollars to every person. Now we got 800,000 people. If you give them 5,000 US each, that's $4 billion US dollars. We're only collecting $350 million per annum so far, but we have to distribute 12 times more nearly than we're collecting. This is the same philosophy. It's utter nonsense. It's ridiculous, and people sometimes buy into that I go many places, people say, you can give us the $5,000 US, because people like free money. I don't blame them. But don't listen to these people. Another group saying we're so rich we should stop working now. This is pure nonsense. And then you have another set saying we should shut down the oil and gas sector. But they have cushy jobs and they're living in Georgetown. They'll never one day walk around the country and come and talk to you. They live in Georgetown. They have a meeting at the Marriott and they're happy because their bread is well buttered. But they don't care about anyone else. So we are not going to be listening to those. Once we believe it's good for our country and our people, the 800,000 of us who live here and the diaspora, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And so this program is for that. But coming back to the key issue about economic transformation. So at the national level, I was telling you that we were busy trying to address in the pandemic the promises and mapping out the plan for the future, and that how we approach planning from the early days of the PPP regime, from fixing a country that was essentially bankrupt and making it viable without even before oil and gas. So each sector now, we've decided we want to get our education and health to a world-class level. We came up with the plans, we did the feasibility studies, we have secured the financing in the last year to start before the end of this year, 7 major hospitals across the country. One will be just a stone throw away from here. So a hospital, 65,000 square feet, with 3 operating theaters. You can have CAT scan, CT scan, just here in the region. You don't have to go to Georgetown or the private sector and pay for it. It will mean a major upgrade of health in the region. And 6 of those are being built along the coast, costing about $130 million US each. Secondly, we're spending about $175 million. Yeah, please come in. Let me drink some coffee. Let me drink some coffee in the meantime while you're adjusting in. Please come to the center. The media might have to get out of there a bit and go to the side here. Right? And give people a chance to come in the middle here. Yeah, you come this way, right? You could come this way. Or that way if you wish. Anywhere. Yeah, you can do the same thing too, that's fine. Yeah, so I was telling you about at the national healthcare level, that's what we are planning. I just want to give you a little picture into the national planning process and what to expect in the future in our country. So these 6 hospitals, 180 million, 30 million each, but will transform along the coast how we deliver healthcare. We then we're upgrading we're building a maternal children hospital at Ogle that will be for specialized cases with our children and women, so that if these hospitals can't handle it, they will get the best care in the world. This is a major international hospital that we are building there. That alone will cost about $175 million, but it's going to have world-class services there. We're upgrading New Amsterdam, Port Morant, Linden, Bartica, West Demerara, Soddy, We're now building we're going to start building 4 major telemedicine facilities and diagnostic centers in regions 1, 7, 8, and 9, the hinterland region. We need to train about 1,000 healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses, nursing assistants, etc. We're going to shift a big program to region 6, so many of you can travel across to train people for this sector, because if we're building more hospitals, we need more people to serve in them. That's going to happen in the future. So it's a major investment in healthcare, because we want the best health care for our people in the future. On the education front, it's the scholarships, the university, the technical training, the skill training. So even if many of you don't want to go to the Gold program, and Professor Opede is here, who heads this scholarship program. He was the former Chancellor of the University of Guyana, Vice Chancellor, and now he's back to head the program. Professor Opede is here, you want to stand? And they are now managing, he's now managing that Gold Scholarship program for us, which is the 20,000 I told you that we promised before the elections, but could grow to 50,000, as many people as we find to put through the training programs. So taking education to another level, but we are also at the technical level. If the last time I came here, which is about a month ago, and when I had the community meetings, I said to people, find as many people who want a training that will make them ready for the job market almost immediately. Since we got in to government, you know, there's been a lot of issues about the Exxon contract. So I recall in 2015 that outside of the Marriott, there was a protest by the opposition at that time, APNU. And Bulkan, who was the Minister of Local Government, saying that the PPP lied, that there was no gas found in Guyana, oil and gas, that we were just saying this as an election gimmick. So we found oil and gas in 2015. In 2016, when we had all the cards on our table, the government went and signed this lopsided agreement that we now have to live with, but we're trying to make the most of. So the way we did that in opposition, we said there are 2 ways we will do this. We will do this through the gas to energy project, try to eke out more benefits to Guyana and our people, and through a local content policy. So in December last year, we passed a strong local content policy. So the companies now, the oil and gas companies and their first-tier contractors, they now have to procure by law some services from Guyanese in 40 areas. Some of these areas are exclusive. So for example, transportation, they can only rent vehicles or cranes and all of those things from Guyanese or Guyanese companies. They can't, like the Trinidadians and many others who are coming here and taking up all of these opportunities. So now the locals only the oil. It would be illegal if they don't do this. They can be fined if they don't rent only from Guyanese or Guyanese companies. Secondly, they can only rent buildings. They would need about 5,000 homes or apartments. Each of these apartments can cost a month $3,000 US to $5,000 US. So that's a big opportunity for Guyanese to build these apartments and rent them. And they can only now rent from Guyanese. They can only get security services from Guyanese, cleaning service from Guyanese. Before that, they were bringing in companies from all around the world. So now this alone could drive maybe upwards of $600-700 million US every year of business to our people. And because we did that in December, People who had migrated a long time, who great-grandparents are Guyanese, are now coming home to get a Guyanese passport because now it becomes valuable for them because they can get preferences in these sectors. Many people don't even read about this. They've gone quiet. All of you should look at that law that we passed, forcing these oil companies now to, and their contractors to recruit people. So this also is on the employment side. Once we have the skill here in Guyana, they're forced now to hire our people first before they go and bring in anybody to work in the sector. So this is one where we're getting back more from that lopsided contract. And secondly, this big pipeline that we want to bring in, bring the gas in, generate power. Now, many people come and say, why can't you put street lights now? And we had started looking at this hydropower in before the last 2015 elections even. APNU killed that project. That project should have come on stream by 2017. So they killed the hydro, but no new investments. Right now, our power demand is close to the capacity we have. So if you lose a single unit, you can't meet demand. You have to have blackouts because no investment was made. So we came into office. In fact, if you look at our manifesto, we said we want to use the gas to bring in the gas through a pipeline, generate power, which will cost us significantly less because we'll be using our own gas, not to import oil from abroad to generate power. And we will then by 2024, in 2 years' time, we'll be producing nearly twice as much power as we use now at the national level that GPL supplies. So at that time, we'd have enough power to do all the lights in all the communities, etc. And by 2024, we'll reduce the price of electricity by 50%. So that will be a major, that's something that we promised to, that we're working on now. At that, the same facility, when you dry the gas, you then have cooking gas. So we'll be producing all the cooking gas. You know, that has gone up too. So now the price, we will be producing that in Guyana, so we don't have to import anymore by 2024, 2025, so we can bring the cost of that down. And that's what we're working on. So that's how we're getting more from these sectors. But coming back to the key point about, so these developments are now taking place in regions 3, that is happening, etc. I spoken to you about what we're about: education, investment in education, investing in healthcare, the oil money in the future. We'll save some through the Natural Resources Fund. Then we'll use some to build world-class infrastructure. So the highways, if you look at the highways now going on the East Bank, we've just completed the part from Eccles to Georgetown that has cut down traveling time on the East Bank significantly. We're taking that to Diamond. That was the most congested area. We're building a bypass from Crane coming to the bridge. We're building a 4-lane high bridge across the Demerara River. Between regions 3 and 4, 60% of our population live there. So we're doing that here. We've just awarded a contract from Ogle to Eccles, $106 million, to do another lane bypassing there. Paving the road now from Diamond to Soesdijk through the IDB program. We have a loan with the Islamic Development Bank now to pave from Soesdijk Junction into Linden. We're going to build a bridge across the Wismar Road in Linden, the river, the Demerara River in Wismar, to cross the river there. We're now paving the road from Linden to Mabura Hill. In Berbice here in Region 6, we were hoping to do a 4-lane there, but it's too narrow, so we're now This year we have 8 billion to remove the utilities, and then we're going to pave the road from New Amsterdam right up to Molson Creek. So on port development, on roads, on power, all of these things are crucial in the future to get more investments, thus more jobs, and then to diversify the economy so that even when the oil goes, because of climate change, you have a narrow window, then we can have long-term sustained development of our people. I'm not going to list everything because we have a lot more. In Berbice and these areas, the president himself came and looked at the agricultural potential for this region for livestock. And he said this could become the livestock capital of Guyana. We started working already to bring this black belly sheep, which we hope to replicate in tens of thousands of them in the region. We're looking at spending nearly $500 million US on drainage issues in 5, 6, 2 and 3, like what we did in Georgetown when we built the Hope Canal. We now safeguard Region 4 from flooding and the need to blow water into the Mahaica River when this is high. All of these plans were laid out when I came here and had the community meeting. I hope you're following them because that's a long-term vision. We have to adapt to climate change, because if we don't adapt to climate change, then there will be consequences. Right across there, at some point in time, maybe the next term in office, what happened? This bridge has to be replaced by a bridge similar to what we're building across the Demerara River, which is a high bridge. It's very high, 4 lanes wide. So eventually that would happen. But even now, in Palmyra, we've just laid out the land in that area. You're going to have a stadium similar to the stadium that we have at Providence on the East Bank that will start before the end of this year. We'll have 2 new hotels, shopping malls, a whole range just across the river right here. That will drive some growth and development. As the same way when we built that stadium, you saw how many hotels were built around it at Providence. It straddles both Region 3, it's just across the bridge from Region 3. So too this one at Palmyra would straddle 5 and 6 so that there could be a growth pole there. We're trying to shift some of the momentum away from the Demerara River, where a lot of the oil and gas industry uses those areas, to now build the deep water facility right here in the Berbice River, the mouth of the Berbice River. If that happens, you're talking about tens of thousands of jobs right here in the region. That's the way we can address longer-term development. We're thinking about the energy corridor linking this facility with Brazil. So these are crucial plans that we have been working on in the last 18 months, map them out. So although COVID was going, we had to fulfill our promises, work on the plan, start getting a lot of these projects going. And then the 35,000 jobs that we lost because of bad policies in APNU, as well as those that we lost under COVID, we are trying to recover. So that is why we think that in these regions, we need this part-time facility to get some people employed whilst they're working and preparing for the bigger plans to come, that they will get better paying jobs and that they would all upgrade themselves to make sure that they take advantage of where we're going in the future. This is crucial for us as we go, because you can't get the investments as quickly into these regions as we're getting into 4 and 3. Everybody wants to build a hotel in Region 4 on the East Coast or the East Bank or just across the river now, and that is why we have labor shortages there. But they don't want to come out as yet. We put up a program and money in the budget to co-invest with people who come out into the region. So if a person wants to build a call center, like we're working now in Skeldon and in regions in Linden and also in Region 2, where we are building the building, the factory shell, and if they want to do a call center, then the people operate it. So then they employ people, and we help them to train. So in this region, we have to explore a few of those two that can create more employment opportunities. The problem in this region is that we're only agriculture based, like Essequibo Coast too. And so don't have many government facilities and all of these. So it's harder to get the employment here. If people want to travel, they can get a lot of jobs elsewhere, but it's harder now to travel these long distances. So it means we have to work at getting these opportunities here. I'm telling you all of this because I'm expecting that you will read for yourselves. If you know where the country is going, then you can see how you'd be part of that future. If you let people cloud your judgment and mislead you based in the newspapers or elsewhere on social media on the direction, you would lose track of where you want to go. Don't allow that to happen to yourselves and to your family. Once you're willing to work hard and for a brighter future, the government will be there to support you on all of your efforts. We'd work hard to support you, but it means that we have to, that's the only way our country will be transformed. And so I expect, as I said before, that all of you, wherever you are placed, we'll try to place you as closely as possible to your village. That if you're placed in a daycare or a government office or a health facility or somewhere to help, that you give the 10 days that you have to work for, you give those days conscientiously. That you work the same way you would like to be treated in a government office when you go into it, that you treat people the same way. Right? That you treat them that manner. Because now every one of you are working for the government now. So it means people will judge the government on the basis of how you behave. We get the heat if you don't treat people well. So you have to make sure that you treat them well, give the days, utilize the opportunity to study. If you want a scholarship, we can work with you to get a scholarship. If you haven't completed the program to get into like CXC, we have a remedial program where we can work with you. If you know other people who want to get trained as electricians, plumbers, masons, etc., welders, we badly need those jobs now. We have huge shortages of those in those areas. If you know people who would like to be trained, for those in your family or your community, get them together. We can work with you, have them apply. The Technical Institute might be a bit far away, but they have a program now there. But we can do something closer to this end too, to get you trained. So please make sure. I was saying to the Minister Dharamlal that maybe one day of the 10 days we'll get you to work back in your communities, whichever village you're from. And there's some important things. It means we have to work with you and train you. We want people to know of the opportunities. Many people sometimes don't apply because they don't know. Like the last meeting, I asked people how many knew about the Gold Scholarship Program. And just a few put up their hands. How many of you know of this scholarship program here? So you have more people here, but still a large number don't know. And this is something you can apply for online. You have a whole range of subjects. So it is this training program, the Gold program, the other programs that if you know, you can then go around your village and talk to people about the opportunities. Secondly, we have another silent pandemic that has been killing our people and many more than COVID, and it's been with us a long time. It's hypertension, diabetes, the heart problems, diabetes, which affect people, their foot, their sight. Sometimes the only time they know is when they go to the hospital and it's too too late to fix them. So these are the lifestyle diseases: obesity, diabetes, hypertension. They can, if you catch them early, you can take remedial steps. People can change their lifestyles, they can have the medication, etc. But very few people in our communities know this, and they don't take care of their own health. So maybe if we train every one of these persons who are working on the part-time program to spend 1 day a month, or maybe one day, maybe 3 days a year, it might not be even 1 day a month, we may be able to get an awareness. And if you go to every home and say to them, have you gotten tested for diabetes or hypertension? Please go and get tested. Here is a brochure. This is how it would affect you. Then we'll get people to take care a bit more about their health. It saves the country a lot of costs, but it also helps with their health. And so we can do that in these areas. If we have this program too, we can even train people to do administer some of these tests. It's pricking the finger, checking for people with their diabetic status. We may be able to train some of you to do that sort of work. So we have a database in people's village, getting people to test for their pressure and all of that sort of stuff. So let's see how we can utilize your skills to the maximum wherever you're placed. If you're placed in a daycare to assist, the mothers there, etc., that would be fine with us too once you're helping our children. But once we get the 10 days per month work, so don't stay home and all of that stuff. We'll be monitoring this too. You got to give 10 days work in your communities, back in your communities and wherever you're placed. So as I said before, it's not free money. It's just to help you get an income so that you can later do something better, and you can use this program as a stepping stone. But thank you very much for being here today. Read a lot, discern for yourself. Don't believe everything you read. Stay off social media for a little, maybe half an hour a day, and read a book sometimes. It's good because sometimes it just gives you headache every month, and you get big mood swings. There is one colleague of mine, I'm not going to call his name, a minister, who 10 times a day his mood swings. Because if people say good thing about him on the social media, in 1 hour he's happy. And then they cuss him out in the next hour, he's sad. Don't get involved in that. And also because you'd end up just harming your health and stuff like that. It's not Kwame or Nigel Darmingham. Because they look a bit guilty when I look across there. So please don't get, that's not your life. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
I almost thought it was me. But nevertheless, thank you, Vice President. And our Vice President will now listen to some of your questions. If you have personal issues, we have some teams headed by Steve. Could you please stand? And Steve has a team of about 5 or 6 people, including the REO, that will document your name and address and your phone number if you have personal issues. But issues of a greater nature that you'd like to raise with the Vice President, please raise them now. We have some mics that will go around. Regional Chairman and some others will take the mics around.
So the point that Nigel just made, because wherever I've gone, people want us to follow up on some issue. They may have an NIS issue, they want to tell me about the road in their community or something else. Now, if the only way we can actually look into these matters is if you help us to do so. And the way you help us to do so is by giving us your name and number, so we've established a unit in the office of the president. They can call you and find out later what the issue is. if everybody comes to try to see me when I'm going out, I can't remember all the issues. So please, they have a team here that is taking down. All we need is your name and number. It could be any issue. The REO and people from my office, please do so now. If any of the comrades and you have any issue there, we can address it later. But let's stick here today. So, what's going on? Yes, this gentleman here. All right, one, yeah.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo.
Yes.
Relating to whatever you have been said to gathering. And I thank you for being here, to hear your concern, and our concern also. But the amount of money that you have been said to give out to people, could you please have a price control in the supermarket? Because whenever somebody gives, whenever parliamentarian people give money to community, the shop people raising it.
All right, yes. Now the comrade, whilst it's hard to have price controls in this area, I can understand the feeling. Because many times when we remove taxes from items with the hope that they would pass on in lower prices, there is no change in the price. And so many of them complain. This period is a difficult period because we know that the prices have gone up internationally. For example, the cost of shipping a container from China used to be like $3,500 US. It's now $20,000 US. So you know it has gone up. But in many other periods, what he's saying is absolutely right. So I understand his sentiment, but there's very little we can do. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, Vice President, Mr. and everybody. It's an honor to be here today. I'm a bit nervous. Anyway, my issue is about, I'm from Region 6. My name is Tony Afonso. My issue is about the New Amsterdam Mayor Town Council. They have been issued removal letters to everybody that vents on the road shoulder, right? Which I understand that. But my nature of business, I have a food.
All right, but comrade, you heard what I just said. That's a personal issue. Give them the name and number, you'll get a call from us. Right? So that is what I'm saying. That the only way I can follow up is if you give them your name and number, then we'll call you and somebody from the office, follow up, and then see what we can do. All right, so give them the name and number there. Yes, and because a lot of people may want to go and get registered now. Yes, yeah, please. Is it a personal issue? Is it a personal issue? Okay, all right. Give her the microphone. What? Which area? Well, tell them the same thing, comrade, your name and number. How do you expect me to follow up on it? Just go and give them your name and number, comrade. Go and give them your name and number. I can't, if you got a problem and you want me to help, you got to give a name and number so we can call. If you tell me here, I can't remember. So when I go back, we'll get somebody from my office to call. Take them over so that they give the name and number. Right? So you two, go and give your name and number. Yes. Comrade, I've been to Bath so many times, so it's just that you don't come to the meeting. You come here today, yeah. This same tarmac when we built this tarmac that we're on, I came here to open this tarmac. You weren't there at that time. Okay, today we're meeting with the farmers this afternoon to set up a committee that will distribute the fertilizer so that we don't give it to people who have not lost anything or so, who don't deserve the help. Okay? So we are going to, we're meeting. Comrade, that is why we met. You heard about the 1 billion initiative where we're giving help to people for the fertilizer. We're meeting at Anvowak this afternoon to decide the committee that will give the fertilizer assistance to people. Right this afternoon at Anvowak. If you got a chance, come there at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, go to Anvowak. Anvowak. All right? Yes, at Anvowak. Yes, please, yes. I can't hear you. Come on. Yes. Yeah, no problem.
If I remember meeting you, I just
okay.
God always work kindness with you.
Oh, okay. All right.
I am a blind person
Yes.
who from the organization. I have one question. I understand that $100,000 is given out to children with disability. I would like to know if there's anything for adults due to this high cost.
So, from what I gather, it's not, I checked it. Isn't it for everyone with disability? Or is it only for children? The children. All right, listen what I'll do. When I go back, the president is out because he launched that initiative. I'm going to discuss that with him to see what help we can give, if we can extend this help to people with disability. I'm going to discuss this, okay? All right. Okay then. Yeah.
Well, let me say, congratulations to government for the good work here. So when I see a program that Guyana is one of the fastest growing economy in the world. The my concern is that seeing that when the country are developing, the Commonwealth is at the same place to live. And now they are asking that what is our plans to live in Carolina?
Yeah, but this is. Let me just go through this. This is what I was just urging people to read and understand. Fastest growing doesn't mean anything more money, because it means look at the revenue to the state. It's a revenue. So I was just telling you, in spite of this big growth rate, how much are we getting from the oil and gas sector? The last 2 years, about 350 million per year. The hospitals alone, the 6 hospitals and the children and maternal hospital will take up all the money for 1 year. That alone. You ain't got nothing else. So growth rate and revenue flows are 2 different things. And sometimes people mix the 2 up. You could have the highest growth, but because the sector operates in an enclavic way. That's what we're trying to explain to people. So I urge people to read more and understand these issues. When they see fastest growing and they listen to Glenn Lal, they think you got a lot of money. You know the madness he says, right? Right, the craziness he says. The thing is that they think, oh, we are washed with money to give out anywhere. We have to work hard. These people are saying we should stop working. Look where the US is. They don't work, they work 3 jobs a day. And they're at $72,000 per capita GDP. We're at 9,000. You understand? So that is what we got to do, much more education among our people. And I hope that comrades like you will do that. You understand the difference between the growth rate. I've been talking to a lot of these foreigners who come here. Every time they come and say, Guyana wash with money. And I say to them, where is in the treasury? I know what is in the natural resources fund. You tell me how much is a wash. And then they go off on their own. In the future, we'll get more money. Right? It will ramp up steeply. But right now, that's the average. 350 million a year.
I say we are creating structures that our lives can be better.
Yes, and that is why I'm saying you can't eat up every cent. You got to build for the future. Infrastructure, the new job. So when the oil goes, we got something to hold on to. Right? So that is all.
Saying that you are here, I would like to appeal for the local government. I am a sick worker. And this casting is what I am.
Yeah. We're looking at something here. I'm looking at something there. Okay. All right. All right. Yeah, good afternoon. They what?
They pay farm money. They pay the same money where they go.
Oh, okay. So let me look into that, because from what I gathered, you done most. But let me tell you something. So at least you were pink slip, but they got a lot of people who didn't get it, right? Because many of them are home. My sister, who lives in Commons Lodge area, she said to me, I want the money. I didn't get it. So I asked her why you didn't get it. She said she wasn't home. So she missed out on the money. She can't get it now. So we'll check, put down your name and number there. Anybody who got like that, a person, come on, I can't follow up. If you want me to check, you put down your name and number. Anybody now. Not. You put down your name and number for the money, but not for the office of the president, man. Oh God. All right, okay. Well, give anybody who has any personal issue. You got personal issue? All right, well then go across. Now once you give them cool, I go with you. Good. All right then. Thank you very much, comrades. I'll come back to at some point in time. Yeah, talk to you.